All right, and I can do this, really, I can. I'm not sharing my screen yet, right? You're not seeing anything? Okay, good. I need to go find that button. There it is. And we'll just do the whole screen. I've been spending most of my time on Zoom for the last several months, so the WebEx is like not familiar, even after we did it at the beginning of the semester. All right, anyway. All right, let's see where to start. Where to start right here. Can't resist a good quote from Margaret Bourke-White, so let's see. I wanted to reiterate the definition of candid. Not that anybody's had a problem with it, but I like the definition, so I put it up there. Of course, there are multiple definitions. The most important one when it comes to this class is candid being relating to or being photography of subjects acting naturally or spontaneously without being posed. Right? We all know that. So what I want to do is just go through this week's submissions and preface by apologizing. I already sent out a notice through Blackboard, but I'm going to say it again. I said last week that an assignment was due this week, and of course I hadn't even bothered to reread my due dates. There was not an assignment due this week. You actually don't have anything due until we get back from spring break on the 23rd. There were a couple of assignments that came in already, and that's great. I will grade those when I grade everyone's. If by some chance you're listening to this and you submitted but did it in a rush and would like to take the extra 2 weeks and turn in something else in 2 weeks, I will gladly accept a different photo from you when the time comes. So, the photos that came in last week, let's go ahead and take a look at them. We're not in person, and I'm not going to expect you to unmute and chime in, so I'm going to do this pretty straightforward, just lecture at you and not worry about feedback unless you want to raise your hand or unmute and say, excuse me, I have a question. I will, of course, take questions when I remember to pause for them. Really quick, good situation, the story of on-campus activities coming back together. Kind of a nice pose. The crop is too loose. I think we can all kind of agree, especially that excess amount of ceiling on top. Maybe not so much the floor on the bottom is a problem. It's nice to use the mirror to give you a sense of other people in the room other than the instructor. A real simple recrop gives you this. Takes out that pink screen at the top, which I don't think is giving us a lot of information. Brings the focus in a little more. Once again, I think you could even go really extreme and make the photo very much just about the people that are actually in the picture. You can see the person in the background has feet, so the instructor doesn't necessarily need the feet in the picture. This narrows the vision down much tighter. Allows you to maybe more easily read the t-shirt that says Yukon Rec, which is, I suppose, kind of relevant. Also allows you to kind of see the exercise equipment there in the background. Gives you a little more sense of context. Just suggestions largely, once again, over my overall theme of telling you to, whenever possible, get closer to your subjects, and if you can't get physically closer, whenever you have the ability to crop for more effectiveness. That's what I'll tell you. Another, I think, really good topic for the photograph. Anything that brings a community together over anything is going to be good. We photographed it the day last week. A prom dress giveaway, a group that collects prom dress donations. So this is kind of a similar thing, very relevant. I suggested a little bit of a tighter crop just because anytime that you can sort of cut out anything that's around the edges that really isn't adding to the photograph, I think is a plus. My biggest question about this photograph is the big bright window in the background. I'll harp on windows a lot. I think you'll hear me say they don't help your background unless what's outside of them is A, particularly visible, and B, particularly relevant. In this case, you've got a giant window that's casting light into the room. I would suggest using that light rather than fighting that light. Get around either directly on the window side and photograph directly back this direction, or off to one side or the other and let the window become side light to your subject matter. Um, if I'm gonna, make other suggestions, I literally probably would have climbed on that little table there over on the right side of the frame so I could get a higher angle, maybe be able to see into the face of the person here in the middle, get an overall look, see more of the clothing in the background. Just lots of suggestions. Always look at all of the different possible ways that you can photograph a situation. Don't get wed to the first one that comes in front of you. Don't get wed to grabbing something and getting out. It's going to be very important for the photo story to be able to get the kind of variety that makes a photo story or a photo essay work, that you move around a lot. You almost never want to be staying in one situation and trying to make all your pictures from that spot. It's going to be a recipe for disaster. So here's a real nice situation, a rally on campus. As an aside, I will tell you that I got an email from the faculty union saying that they have reached a tentative agreement with the university, so maybe this rally worked. I don't know. Beautiful, really beautiful light. I mean, this is the kind of thing where, mid to late afternoon, especially when you've got some clouds in the sky, that'll diffuse the light a little bit and also cause it to shine from kind of different directions than you might normally see. So it's really nice light. Actually, I like this composition from this perspective because I really kind of like the people in the foreground who give it sort of a little bit of a draw in. I still feel like there's too much sky. It ends up being more of a pictorial, scenic photograph than it is kind of a news photograph about these people and their issues, things to do otherwise. Get up right behind the person with the bullhorn and photograph looking into the faces of the crowd. Just get kind of right there in the middle of the crowd so that you're photographing just the close-up of the people and their signs. Lots of other ideas. About the only thing I could do is a little bit of a recrop just to take out some of that excess sky, both above and to the left. This gets you a little closer. You see a little more of the faces, get a little more of a sense of maybe a little bit of body language that imparts some sense of the emotion. Not a lot. I don't think it's the kind of thing where these people were really particularly militant, just wanting to make sure they're having their voice heard. Once again, this is a situation where the back/side light works really well. Gives really good crisp lines to the people against a dark background, so that's nice. Nighttime snow scenes can be really pretty difficult to photograph, especially with the smartphone camera. The amount of latitude, the range between the lights and the darks that the camera can record are less than a SLR with a larger imaging sensor. Biggest gripe, once again, like I said, get around in front, show me faces, especially people dealing with weather. You're going to get, pursed up, squinched up faces dealing with the cold. You're going to get body language of people crossing their arms. All of that could be there, but instead it's backs. I would suggest the toning might be a bit much on this screen now, but once again, a little tighter, bring us a little closer to the action. We've got complete legs for the people in that forward group, so you can go ahead and crop these two in the foreground here to make them more of a framing element. You've got a nice sense of the swirling snow, which is good. A telephoto lens, which compresses things a little better, would make the snow stand out a little differently, but other than that, kind of a nice image. This is another slightly different crop if you look. This one I went pretty tight on the vertical, makes the buildings and the lights maybe. This one leaves that car on the left, makes you feel more of a street scene, a little less on the vertical. go back and forth on this. This I think is the better toning than what I did with this one, just because this keeps a good solid black in the photograph as opposed to the other. And moving on, if it will, another protest photo or a rally. I think we're going to see a lot of these Ukraine kind of rallies. We've got one coming up here in New London at the end of the week. Candlelight vigils, people holding flags. I think they're all very interesting. I think this is a situation where, big blob of white snow, visually kind of distracting. I would suggest moving around, maybe photographing closer to the woman with the bullhorn who has that really nice wreath of sort of traditional Ukrainian regalia, or even go over to the line of people and photograph either a just slightly off from side view with the young woman in the foreground with the headgear, with the line of people behind her, or even just move up physically closer to that line of people and make the row of 4 people and their signs the photograph. That takes care of sort of all this dead space in the middle. The Black Lives Matter sign in the background is kind of confusing. This isn't a Black Lives Matter protest. I know that building has that sign there all the time, but I don't. Little things, quibbles. Not I could have, like I said, recropped to just those 4 people maybe. Here we have a nice personal moment. Pretty much nothing I could do with this cropping wise in the immediate sense. Woman is meeting her nephew for the first time, 2 weeks old. Really nice, tender body language. The only thing I would suggest is maybe move down just a little bit lower so you can see her eyes a little better. Could have cropped maybe a little bit on the left there so that piece of decoration on the wall wasn't in. But whatever you do, don't crop out the little stuffed bunny that's in the background, which is perfect, right? So, any questions on the subject of those news photos, stuff I talked about? And not hearing any. I have a couple of things on the reading front. I skipped right by that one. These are posted in the readings section in course content. This is from, if you'll remember from the beginning of the semester, we talked about John Philo in Kent State photographing the woman responding to the friend who had been shot by the Ohio State National Guard troopers at the anti-Vietnam protest. These are 2 articles very specifically about the taking of that photograph and the situation. Really good reads. Just give you a little insight into what goes through the mind of a photojournalist in a challenging situation. The second link there is a more contemporary piece looking back at an anniversary with a much more detailed interview with the photographer who tells the story of how he basically rushed to get out of Kent, Ohio for fear that the National Guard was going to shut down the roads and his photos would never get out. So it's also a very good read. I've also thrown 2 other links in. I've got to get out of this. So these are those 2 articles, if I can get this to go where I want it to. This is the Columbia Journalism Review article, which sort of tells the overall story. This is that small newspaper story with John Philo talking specifically about it. The other thing I gave you the links to in course content is this really great place, this really good piece from Blind Magazine highlighting the work of Ukrainian photographers working in these times. Excuse me. Which gives you some really good photographs. And then National Public Radio curated a really nice collection as well, showing you some of the reactions in Ukraine. Many of you may have seen Lindsay Adario's powerful photograph on the front of the New York Times, showing the family that had been killed by a mortar round while trying to evacuate their city. These are the kind of photos that we're going to see a lot of as this war progresses. I don't expect it's going to end anytime soon. I just wanted to offer these two sets as good examples of some of the powerful work that's going on. You'll notice, of course, that pretty much all the work that we're seeing out of Ukraine is coming from the side of the civilians. Uh, it's not generally, I mean, there are some war photographers who will go into the field with troops. The Russians are not probably too keen on that, not allowing it. Um, the Ukrainian forces are a little more scattered and less organized, but I think also probably not allowing journalists to travel directly with their active units. So what Ukrainian troops we're seeing in photographs are largely the local militias and groups that are providing security around evacuations and refugees, and not frontline troops. I suspect that there are photojournalists who are closer to the front lines, and we're just not seeing their work because it can't quite get out yet. But I encourage you to look at these. Um, you could also look up Lindsay Adario's work, specifically on the New York Times. She's doing some incredible work. Uh, Brendan Hoffman is another New York Times photographer who's in country. Emilio Morinati, who is one of the Associated Press's best conflict photographers, is in Ukraine. And Marcus Yam of the Los Angeles Times, New York Times, Los Angeles Times, is doing incredible work there as well. You look up any of these people, I think they're feeding their Instagrams pretty readily. So I will just say very briefly, you registered for this class on Wednesdays. If you were in the Monday class, your professor would have taught you on Monday from Ukraine. Pat Raycraft works for a humanitarian aid group that is currently working in Ukraine, and so he had to go there and wasn't able to teach class in person on Monday. So he taught class via Zoom from his car in Ukraine. Um, so I apologize that I can't be as exciting as Pat. I am not going to Ukraine. You're going to have to settle for me talking about it at length. So, all that said, given the overall situation and not wanting to pile too much information into this course today, unless either of you have questions for me, I'm going to let this be it for class today and just tell you enjoy your spring break, and I'll look forward to seeing photos from you when we all come back. Thank you. Like I said, have a good week and take care. Enjoy your spring break. See you when you get back. Sharing. Stop recording. And stop video. Meeting.